I'd like to talk a little bit about how to fill up your torch. Remember I told you about how the valves are all the same? So all of the torches, whether pencil torches or these, they're all butane, are going to be the same in terms of filling. So one thing you might want to do is turn it down. I always double check to make sure they're really off. And even though I don't think you'd want to fill it this way, aiming it towards yourself, make sure you aim it away from yourself. One of the things that happened to me as an instructor is I had a student hand me one of these one day and say, "Could you fill it for me?" And I went, "Sure." And I took it, went like this, got the can, put it in, and a flame shot out on the other end. The reason why that happened is because she thought because the flame had died, it was empty. And what really happened was that there was a tiny little flame in there that she didn't see, I didn't see, so the torch was still on. So the minute I put the gas in on this end, it shot out the other end, but the flame was still there. So it was like having a flamethrower, and it shot out to this far. And like I said, it kind of goes against basic instinct to have it aimed at you, but had I had it aimed towards me, I would have just torched myself. So always have it aimed away from you. Again, check, make sure it's off, turn it down, aim it away from you. Now, the gas. So you can buy this at lots of different places. I have bought gas at hardware stores, drugstores, and probably, I think one of the worst places maybe to buy it is if you order it and have it shipped to you, because then you're going to be paying extra charges for hazardous material. So I think one of the places that you can go that's probably the cheapest is, believe it or not, a drugstore. When I go to hardware stores, they tend to have smaller cans for some reason, and they tend to be more expensive. And so far, at the time that I'm making this videotape for you, it still seems cheaper to get these at drugstores. Be aware you might get carded. Not because it's gas, but because they're afraid you're going to smoke cigarettes or something for your cigarette lighter. Oh, and that reminds me, don't smoke while you're doing this because it's gas. So here's how you do it. Now, I have a saying. Oh, let me just show you something. Some of these have these little tips. I have used these tips, and I don't think they really help things. The idea is they have different sizes, and you find the right size for your torch and whatnot, and you put it on, put it in here. Even though I've used them, it still sprays gas all over the place, which brings me to my little quotable quote. All my students have heard this. They can put men on the moon, but they cannot find an efficient way to get the gas from this can into this torch. So here's what happens. I like to take my elbow, plant it into my body. You have to put this straight down, and push hard. If you push at an angle, the gas is going to spray out. If you push straight down, it's still going to spray, but not as much. So how do you know when it's full, when you've got enough gas in there? When it starts squirting everywhere and it's a liquid, okay? Try not to breathe it. Now, right now, we are in a studio. When you do this, do it outside. We've got a window open over there, so there is ventilation, and it's just the logistics of videotaping this. I don't recommend you do this in the house. Go outside. When I teach classes, all my students, everybody goes outside, and we all line up against the building, and then I show them how to do it, and we all put the gas in, and we're all aiming out, so we're not going to get anybody, okay? So here goes. Oh, and one more thing. If you've ever put air into the tire of your car, this is very similar, because sometimes when I put air into the tire of my car, I'm wondering, am I really putting air in there, or am I letting the air that's already in my tire out? So here we go. And I actually don't know if this torch needs gas, but we'll find out real quick. So here we go. Okay, it's full. You see all that gas dripping? If it's dripping, it's full. Okay. So there we go. Now, what's really, really important is you need to read what's on the can. I'm not going to read it for you because things change. I would always read this before using it. One of the main things that it says on here is to never store this gas in temperatures of 120 degrees, which to me means don't put your torch anywhere where it's going to be 120 degrees. 120 degrees is not that hot. Maybe with our temperatures, you know, I've been in climates where it's gotten 100, 105. 120 could easily be the trunk of your car, not a good place to keep these torches, or somewhere out in the sun. So think about that. Now, another thing it tells you on here, but I still want you to read your can when you get it, is that you should let this settle for 3 minutes. In fact, I like to let it settle a lot longer. Now, when I teach, it's usually through the voice of experience because I too have messed up a few times. So one time I wasn't paying attention and I did not let it settle for 3 minutes. And guess what happened? I had a little fireball in my hand. And the reason why that happened, I think, is because the gas was still lingering around the torch. It was still in here, sort of wafting up. So I filled it up. I'm not paying attention. I light it, and my whole hand was engulfed in a blue flame. So it happens very quickly, and it was gone. What I recommend is if anything happens to you or your torch, that you don't scream and throw it. Turn it off and set it down as fast as you can, but don't just throw it across the room. That brings me to another thing. I think every torch, no matter what the make, what the model, whether it's brand new, whether it's old, I think they all have this potential to do something called flaring. And I have a lot of torches because of teaching, and once in a while I keep some torches with me and I put a little X on the back, and to me that means that this one has flared. I'm not going to demonstrate this for you, but I'm going to tell you what happens. Flaring is something that I don't know exactly what goes wrong, but I'm sure it has something to do with the mixture in the regulator. I've had some torches just spew out wet gas. If you see that happen, turn it off. Don't try to ignite it, turn it off. I've had some torches flare, which means that they're throwing out a flame about this far. And that's, again, why it's important that you're not working around your cats, curtains, tablecloths, a wall, things like that. If your torch flares, just turn it off. And I recommend to all my students that they save their receipt for wherever they bought it, and I would call them and see what procedure they have for returning it. Now, there has been some times, like when I've traveled, where I wanted to bleed out to get rid of the gas in a torch, either for shipping, transporting, or to dispose of it. So I think the best way to bleed these out is if you can find a place where there's cement, there aren't any walls, there's nothing that's going to catch on fire, and you light it and you just let it run, and then, you know, pull up a chair, get a book, and wait, because it's going to take about 20 minutes. And in fact, even after it winds down and it's disappeared, the flame's gone, you think it's finished, I would still let it run for about another hour just to make sure. And ultimately, I'm never convinced that all the gas is actually gone. So for that reason, you know, you can't take these on planes. And I recently had one confiscated. It was brand new. It was in the package. I had a Post-it note on it, and it said, brand new torch, never been used, no gas, and they took it anyway. So when I travel and teach, I often buy torches on the other side or have them buy it. And then I line them all up and I bleed them out, and I bleed them for an entire day because I'm kind of nervous and superstitious, Iris. And then I package them up myself and send them to myself. So if you were to store these torches at home, think of it, this is the way I think of it, what if they're always leaking and what if they're always on? So you want to put them somewhere where gas can't pool, where it can't collect. You also want to put them somewhere that if they turned on, they're not going to set something on fire. Also, you have to remember that where there's electricity, especially an on-off switch, there is a spark. And if these are leaking, you don't want that spark. So places like, I wouldn't store them anywhere near a pilot light or garage door openers. Just think about where you're putting it. Probably not too hot, too cold. Worst case scenario. So let's say through no fault of your own, your home gets set on fire. Where is your torch? You don't want it. Okay, what's worse than a torch blowing up? A torch blowing up under the kitchen sink with Drano, with fertilizer, with car wax, with all those chemicals that you keep under the kitchen sink. Antifreeze. I know some people that keep antifreeze in the kitchen. Can you believe that? So I would not keep the torch with those kinds of products around. I also wouldn't put it in the closet door next to the front door. If that's your way to get out of where you're going, don't put the torch next to your escape route. And I'm just saying, you know, you want to be careful. I use these all the time. I think that they are pretty safe, but I think knowledge is power. So the more you think about this, the better you're going to have an experience. Let's see, a couple more things. So if I were to dispose of the torch, I would bleed it, and I would treat this torch just like I would treat the cans of gas. So I've lived in Berkeley, California, for example, and there I would take the empty cans of gas, and probably if I had any defective torches, after I get refunded, I would take them down to the recycling center where they deal with hazardous material. So you hand them over to somebody. What you don't do is you don't put them in your garbage. Here's why. Where does that garbage go? It gets compacted by a trash compactor. It might even get incinerated, and even a tiny bit of gas in here will actually blow up and could cause a lot of problems, could hurt people. Let's see, I've also lived in a place called Pacifica in California, and there the county rule for stuff like this, I had to call and find out, was to put it out by your recycling bins, not in the recycling bins, but next to the recycling bins. That way the garbage collectors could see them and keep them separate, and then they disposed of however they dispose of. So what you want to do is you want to find out what your county rules are. And if you have to save up 12 of them and take them all down to the recycling center, it's still better and safer to do it that way than to just toss it in your garbage. Don't just toss them in your garbage. As far as I know, there isn't anywhere where that's legal or safe. I think that just about covers everything. So there you have it. For all those pyromaniacs out there, I hope you've enjoyed this talk. And if you have any questions, you know, feel free to contact me. And it's always a learning experience. These torches, the models are going to change. The gas cans are going to change. They'll probably discover more things that they're going to warn you about. So make sure you always read the directions and save that receipt. So good luck and have a lot of fun playing with fire. Bye.